Ever since first premiering on TV in 1997, South Park has become an unlikely staple of pop culture. Even after decades of being on air, Cartman, Kyle, Stan, and Kenny continue to keep Comedy Central running smoothly and entertain audiences year after year. With video games rising in prominence in the late 90s, it only makes sense that South Park would dive into the gaming industry by releasing a few titles. Although which of the South Park games were the best? And that's where we come in, as we'll be having a look at all the South Park games and ranking them from worst to best games to have ever been released. But of course, just before we do go into the video, if you do like this type of content and you would like to see some more top 10 videos, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and of course, like this video. And with all that said, let's just get straight into it. These are all the South Park games to have been released, ranked from worst to best. Number 9. South Park. Of all the genres to tackle for South Park's first gaming adaptation, a first-person shooter is not the first game that comes to mind. However, in the wake of Doom and his many imitators in the 1990s, it did make somewhat sense that South Park would try its luck at the first-person shooter genre. First released on the Nintendo 64, this game features the 4 Colorado youths flinging mounds of snow and dodgeballs at turkeys that have invaded their hometown. Other enemies do eventually follow, but the biggest problem in this creatively titled South Park game is its lack of variety. Between the looping music, repetitive voice lines by the playable characters, and lackluster shooting, this is one retro shooter that isn't worth revisiting anytime soon. Number 8. South Park Chef's Love Shack. For Acclaim's second attempt at capturing South Park's lighting in an interactive bottle, they chose a much more appropriate genre. This game was a general knowledge trivia game that was injected with South Park humor and seems like the perfect fit for the series, especially since the developers took inspiration from a popular title at the time titled You Don't Know Jack. Unfortunately though, while Chef attempting to lure lovely ladies in for a game show, only to have the boys show up instead is classic South Park, the actual game part of the equation is severely lacking. The trivia questions don't have the same wit or surprise as the You Don't Know Jack titles, and this South Park game isn't afraid to copy over entire segment ideas from the signature creation of Jackbox games. Worst of all, the premise of Chef's Love Shack never really comes into play throughout each round, and the game overall just lacks a bit of a conclusion. Number 7. South Park Tenements Revenge. The second of 2 Xbox Live arcade games designed to restart South Park as a gaming franchise. It's a wonder any games about the series made it past the finish line after this release. A flat, bog-standard 2D platformer, South Park Tenements Revenge casts players as the 4 South Park boys, chasing farmed villain Scott Tenorman through time as he steals their Xbox 360 hard drive. Considering that Tenements Revenge invokes one of the most famous episodes of South Park, it's a shame how forgettable that this game is. From the character powers to the cramped levels, this game overall is just a shallow game surfing on a continued success of the cartoon. Number 6. South Park Rally. Anyone who grew up in the days of PlayStation and Nintendo 64 would have likely rented or purchased a handful of generic kart races. Following the success of Super Mario Kart on the N64, every franchise worth its salt was stuffed into the kart racing mold by every publisher imaginable. South Park got the same treatment with a game called South Park Rally in January 2000, and is pretty much everything that it says on the tin. While technically not just a racing game since it involves driving to checkpoints European style, South Park Rally has all of the other hallmarks of countless kart races of its day. Themed power-ups, an expanded cast of characters, and random voice lines from the show highlight this playable but wholly unoriginal release. Number 5. South Park Phone Destroyer. A mobile cards battle full of microtransactions released alongside South Park, The Fractured Butthole, South Park Phone Destroyer is a throwback to the earlier days of South Park's license fare. While Phone Destroyer has a higher production value than many of the older releases, it's a game that's happy to copy mechanics from better releases. Games where players drag units onto the battlefield and watch them go at it in strategic contests are very common these days, and that's the general gist of what Phone Destroyer is on a basic level. Number 4. South Park Let's Go Tower Defense Play. The last game to be ranked merely average, this game is a serviceable adaptation to the tower defense gameplay exclusive to Xbox 360's Live Arcade that has Cartman and his friends defending the neighborhood against gingers, crab people, and many other memorable antagonists from the show. Let's Go Tower Defense Play lacks cutscenes of any sort, but it does have original voice work and a co-op multiplayer mode that makes it an enjoyable playthrough for those who enjoy the genre and the show. Number 3. South Park Pinball. South Park Pinball is another fine licensed adaptation by Zen Studios for their digital pinball platform. The base table features all the main characters of the show and many references that players might expect, although divided between those relevant in 2014 and the all-time classics. This game was released as both a standalone pair of tables and as a DLC add-on for the first two Pinball FX games. Number 2. South Park: The Fractured Butthole. Ubisoft's second South Park RPG succeeds mostly based on the momentum generated from its direct predecessor. While the superhero theming of Fractured Butthole is great to explore in this expanded setting, the changes to combat and pacing render this a lesser experience, even if it's still very much worth playing for anyone interested. South Park: The Fractured Butthole hits everything the stick of truth passed over, giving fans a huge pile of references and a story that's compelling for the handful of sitting it takes to complete. It'll be interesting to see if Ubisoft attempts a third game of this style, or if South Park will stop trying to top its own perfect adaptation. Number 1. South Park: The Stick of Truth. Developed by the now Microsoft-owned Obsidian Entertainment, originally set to be published by the original THQ before their bankruptcy, it's a miracle that South Park: The Stick of Truth saw the light of day. There were so many moments where it could have become an entry on the list of most promising cancelled games. Instead, it persevered and became one of the prime examples of how a licensed game can not only faithfully adapt a property, but perfectly convert a television show into a video game with no drop in quality. There are meta references to the world of video games, callback to fan favorite moments, and insanely over-the-top sequences that only a series like South Park can deliver. With the help of the series creators, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, they were able to create a season's worth new content that looked and sounded exactly like the episodes airing on Comedy Central. There are few games from across the history of Medium that so perfectly bridge the gap between passive and interactive entertainment, and this game was one of them. And so there you pretty much have it. Those were all of the South Park games to have been released ranked from worst to best. So what did you think of this list? Do you agree with the order that we've placed them in? Or perhaps that maybe there's a South Park game that we've forgotten about that should have been on this list? If so, do let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. I would love to hear it. And of course, not forgetting that if you do like this type of content and you would like to see some more top 10 videos, be sure to hit that subscribe button and of course, like this video. I'll also leave some more videos at the end of this video if you would like to check them out. Thanks very much for watching guys, and I will see you all next time.